Well, Henshaw here again, your friendly local constitutional coop out here in California. And today's subject matter is going to be a very interesting one that people don't think about. Well, actually, today they do, much more so than has been the case. Abortion issue. Eat. Now, myself personally, I'm not thrilled with that, but at one and the same time, in the nation and republic we're supposed to have of defined and limited powers and sovereign independent states, then it's the woman that has the right to make that choice on her own. And if, in fact, as a lot of people claim that's against the laws of God, she may have some explaining to do in the temporal court after she gets where she's going and explain what she was thinking when she did it. As far as for courts here, however, quote unquote courts, and they're really administrative tribunals, and even if judicial courts would have some power, and they don't, these administrative tribunals sure as hell don't, and they can't tell you what to do. And now we got places like Texas, who, by the way, is in the middle of Texas right now. We'll be talking about that in another video. Leaving the union, an interesting proposition, but they want to keep people from traveling outside of Texas to get an abortion. How does that work again? Wow, just amazing. And especially since, Congress could handle the matter easily, given that they think there's no power that they don't have in my former hometown, Washington, D.C. And all they have to do is pass the law making giving childbirth in this day and age felony child abuse. And you can make a hell of an argument for that, especially what you see going on in the schools today with the 3 R's all out the back door and teaching all this woke crap and transgender nonsense and this, that, and the other. And there are reasons for that I'll be discussing on other videos. But the education level and the really astounding part, and I'm glad I'm in the baby boomer generation I am, when these little bastards get out of school in 10 or 12 years, how in the world are they going to be able to possibly be, educated, neutral jurors, in jury trials, whether civil, criminal, or what have you? And that's the bottom line to what the system really wants. So they don't know they have the right to decide the facts and the law. And that's been true in the United States from day one, and it goes all the way back to the Magna Carta in 1215 for crying out loud. And yet there's none of those jury trials anywhere in sight. And no matter where you are in the country, from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon, they ain't there. And that's because there's no common law states. And as you'll learn from getting my materials, by the way, send me an email, youwinningcourt@gmail.com, and you will learn that most of this crap came down during Reconstruction and with the 14th non-existent War Amendment. And that's what changed the whole structure of government from a federated Republican government of defined and limited powers to, in effect, the Nazi regime, where the citizens these days don't have any rights to de facto national socialist government is bound to respect. That's what the banksters did with that 14th War Amendment. And the very secret agenda of that amendment, they didn't tell anybody who ratified it, was to create subordinate corporate birthright citizens. Nobody knew. The Supreme Court didn't know until 1886. That's another thing you'll learn a lot about, a very interesting issue. For 18 years, they didn't know. And they were going to rule in a case right down the street from where I am, Southern Pacific Railroad would be Santa Clara County, that the county could tax the railroad. But this fat bastard, Roscoe Conkling, shows up. And he was one of the key members of the secret committee of 15 on Reconstruction. And he told the court the carefully concealed intent was to create these corporate citizens. They then ruled in favor of the railroad and went on down the road, literally. But for 18 years, even they didn't know, crying out loud. And that's money in the bank for us, especially with the current justices on the court today, who are in their fourth term of an all-out assault on that same administrative state that was created by those war acts of Congress. That's how exciting it gets. By the way, send me an email, youwinningcourt@gmail.com. I'll tell you more about what I do. And you're going to wonder why they didn't teach you anything in school about this either. And I sure as hell didn't get it 60 years ago outside of Washington, D.C. It wasn't there. Black is literally white, by the way, because, all we heard about Andrew Johnson, our greatest president, was that he was impeached, which was true. Unfortunately, it failed by one vote. Had it gone the other way, the Supreme Court at the time rules the tenure of office unconstitutional and changes the course of American history. You'll learn a lot more about that. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com, about my modestly priced constitutional defense document packets. But when you start to understand American history, that's when it gets really good. And like you coming out of school, I was just as ignorant, probably more ignorant than you, as I was so damn stupid at the age of 19. What did I do? Volunteered into the Marine Corps, out of the Tet Offensive in the Vietnam War. How is that stupid? Luckily, my dear mom, I miss her now. It's been 20 years, Mom. I still miss you every day. But put a curse on the Marines and said they're not going to get me. And they didn't. But I walked into Fort Holabird in Baltimore on the way to Paris Island and never made it. The sergeant looked up and looked at me and says, if you lose your glasses, how will you know who to shoot? And I am pretty nearsighted, as you can see. I didn't know the right answer then like I do now. I would have said, no problem. Give me an M16, point me back to Washington, D.C., the White House, landslide Lyndon Johnson, and I'll take care of it. That's the bastard on his first day in office, November 25th, after they assassinated Kennedy, was to reverse his executive order taking us out of Vietnam and putting us back into it. And you'll learn a lot more about this and a lot more about the history of American war since the Spanish-American War, quote unquote, in 1898. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. And once you understand how this crap really works, and by the way, I didn't get it overnight either. And that's one of my jobs, by the way. And you do get complimentary phone consultations with me and email exchanges back and forth because you'll have questions. And that's my job, to get you up to speed as quickly as I can. And when you get that perspective, that makes you really dangerous to these bastards because they can't get around you anymore. To learn more, send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. And wow, here I am. I mean, I'm 75 now. Life is still ahead of me. A little luck, I got 8 to 10 years, family history being what it is, how to finish the job I was put here to do. And that, by the way, as far as me being put here, and obviously I can't prove this, mind you, but I'm a very strong feeling that I'm a refugee from the mid-19th century, not the mid-20th century. Goes all the way back to March 3rd, 1857. You can Google the date and you'll see how I'm pretty sure I know exactly when it happened. How I got from A to B, I'm not sure about that. Gotta ask Bill Gates or Elon Musk or someone like that how that part happened. But yeah, and it's part of what I am, part of what I do. And in the 50s, by the way, I spent a lot of time growing up in Virginia and West Bygos, Virginia in the summer times. And it wasn't a lot different, I think, from 100 years ago where I originally came from. And I was right there in the shadow of Jeffersonian republicanism. And a lot of things, rubbed off on me. I didn't get it at the time like I would have if they would have taught us in high school. But that said, it's so much better. I mean, you're going to love it. And send me an email, by the way, youwinnincourt@gmail.com, and I'll get you started. And not only it benefits you, it benefits your children and your posterity. Exactly like the racist, quote-unquote, framers intended by ordaining and establishing this Constitution and the law, in concert with this, to establish the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. We want it back. And we're in a window of time with the U.S. Supreme Court on our side where we may be able to do it. They're acting like a judicial court first time in 90 years and sounding exactly like me in the process. How good is that? Wow. To learn more, send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com, and we'll go from there. And in the meantime, subscribe, like the videos, tell your friends, get the word out. The sooner we go in there and start to take our republic back, the quicker we're going to get it back, and everybody will benefit across the board, whether you're white citizens, African Americans, Asians, doesn't matter. You will have enforceable rights, not civil rights. And that's a huge, big difference. So that said, like I say, send me an email, uwincourt@gmail.com, and we'll go from there. And remember to subscribe, tell your friends, get the word out. The more of us we have, the quicker we do this, the better off all of us are going to be. Thank you.